They're justifying rape. Now for them to be charged with the worst sexual crimes you can imagine, including sex trafficking, rape, we're talking about minors.
They built an empire on abuse. They built an empire on abusing women.
They were putting it all out on social media, getting likes and clicks.
This is not manliness. This is not masculinity. This is not manhood. This is bullshit.
Women's lives are at stake. Hey there, everybody. A set of self-proclaimed misogynistic brothers have been making the headlines, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit I am just getting up to speed on the Tate brothers, their manosphere, the unbelievable number of crimes they're accused of committing, and all of this has been going on. There have been headlines about the Tate brothers for about a decade, and I'm just getting up to speed. Were you aware of Andrew and Tristan Tate?
But why are you said you're embarrassed that you're not up on two misogynists and two chauvinists who are spewing this stuff out there. Don't be embarrassed. We're not supposed to understand that shit like this is even going on. Their names, yes, have made headlines. I'm familiar with them. I think I'm surprised at just with this latest round of headlines and the latest time they're being taken into custody here in the U.S. I think I am shocked at just how big of a movement there seems to be of people who are promoting and have an audience for folks who want the knowledge of how to go through life putting down women.
Yes, I mean, and that's a good way to put it. These two have made, I don't even know how many millions and millions of dollars claiming to be self-help guys who are trying to help other guys, and not in the way you would think. I would think have better fitness, have better self-care practices.
There's some of that in there, kind
have some better mental health. But no, they put down anyone who seeks mental health. They put down anyone who isn't a real man, and they elevate women who, they don't elevate women at all. They elevate men who put down women. They are flying in the face of basically all of this feminine empowerment movement. They're kind of taking it back, and they're acting like they're the victims, and they want to help men reclaim their power and their place in the world.
Why do they have such an audience then?
Because apparently there are a bunch of men who feel emasculated. I don't know. Is that the way to look at it?
That is, and that's a part of what they really do think, Robes. They are finding an audience of young men disenfranchised for whatever reason they think in their own minds, but they're looking for what, Robes? They're looking for identity. They're looking for purpose, a sense of belonging. They're looking for strength. They're looking for respect. They are looking for power. And these guys are giving them a community where they can be like-minded and go after these things. This is it's the basic, most ridiculous, stereotypical foolishness you would ever see. First, get the money, get the car, then you get the girl. I mean, this is really all they're promoting. But the way they're suggesting going about it, not just a matter of putting women down, Ropes, in some instances, these guys have given instruction on how to harm women if they don't behave. Robes, they have an audience, millions upon millions. Andrew Tate has 10.8 million followers on X.
And you say on X because he's been banned on every other social media platform, and he had been banned on Twitter until Elon Musk took it over and reinstated him. And yes, that is why I guess I said at the beginning that I was embarrassed that I really wasn't aware of these brothers, and the hate they were spewing, because I do think as a woman and as a mom of daughters, and certainly when you actually have a platform, to not be aware that this is going on at the level it's been going on. And I was only made aware when even more arrests, they've been arrested again, but even more heinous charges have been leveled against them. You are talking about two brothers who promote hypermasculinity, and yes, offer instructions on how to put a woman in her place should she disobey, who have made money off of dehumanizing women. Truly, that's the best way to put it. And now for them to be charged with the worst sexual crimes you can imagine, including sex trafficking, rape. We're talking about minors. This is an international situation as well. Charges in Romania, charges in Great Britain. I think the only place here in the United States We haven't. This country hasn't formally charged them, but maybe that's coming too.
You know what, Robes, you just, there are some Diddy parallels, obviously, here. Robes, sex trafficking fits in this one.
It does.
Unlike the one that they got Diddy on. Robes, these two have been allowed, you say sex trafficking, this is a classic case.
It is.
The definition, look, they have not been convicted of anything. We need to say that clearly, and we should say it, and we should repeat it several times here, Robes. But I don't know how. The other comparison they're making is Epstein. That a house of cards is now kind of coming down, that they've been allowed to operate for so many years. And Robes, some of these accusations do go back a decade plus.
Yes.
So they have been, according to prosecutors in many places, up to this trafficking, abusing women for the sake of profit, actually, for years and years and years. There is an Epstein comparison, and Robes, it's apt because there are so many people on the right who were embracing these guys because of what? The audience that they commanded, and also some of the same messaging they had that we sometimes see coming out of the administration, in particular maybe.
Anti-DEI?
Or I was going to think your guy over there, Hegseth, with the uber masculinity, right?
Low T.
That thing right there, Robes. The problem is that these guys are so influential, they are creating an army of young men who are going to go out into the world and spread this and behave like this and be the option for women who are looking for good partners. Robes, that is the scary part, is that we are raising a possible community, an army of guys whose mindset it is to treat women in this way.
And you know what also is concerning with you when you mentioned the Epstein connection? And okay, I can see that, but I would even argue if what they're being charged with is true, it may be even worse in that they were hiding in plain sight. They weren't doing things covertly. They weren't doing things behind closed doors. They were putting it all out on social media, getting likes and clicks. They've even been accused of deliberately putting out very incendiary videos to skew the algorithm so they could get more followers, so they can get more clicks, so they can get more money.
It worked.
They were deliberately being, I don't even know the word to describe it. It's beyond offensive. It's dangerous. And they were allowed to continue to operate with really, yes, they've been charged, but what accountability has there actually been for their actions?
Isn't there a separation? I meant to go back to it. You said this hyper or uber masculinity. And a lot of that's out there. I find this to be almost in a different category. Yes, they do promote hyper-masculinity, but Robes, they promote a
violence.
Type of misogyny and violence that's different from a lot of guys just out there saying, yeah, get the biggest muscles and you got to be tough. And I find this a little more, I don't even know if I want to call it extreme, but it's a little different from, even if you have a problem with the uber masculinity, this is other level stuff.
They're justifying rape.
They have, and this is a guy, Andrew Tate, who has before promoted and had no problem being shy about saying that women were responsible if they were the ones who were sexually assaulted.
Absolutely.
That's
a fact.
That's what we're talking about with these guys who, again, Rose, we go to the back and forth. Britain, Romania, then U.S. Okay,
Correct.
It's kind of how the route. And if you all aren't familiar, and again, Rose, and I get what you're saying when you say I'm embarrassed, I wasn't aware. Rose, I don't know, I wouldn't believe you if you told me, yes, that somebody's out there spewing, that they have a massive audience that even the White House was willing to listen to. I didn't know that.
Yes, so we're talking about 39-year-old Andrew Tate, his brother, 38-year-old Tristan Tate. They were both kickboxing champions, correct?
I thought just the older brother. I know baby brother did.
I saw baby brother was too. So they both have this masculine prowess. They've been kickboxing champions. They both were in reality TV.
Did you get the sense that as all you see about them, that the older brother seemed to be more of the ringleader?
Yes.
He seemed to be
He's got the most charges against him too.
And overwhelmingly.
Yes.
As well as it seems. But it always seems like baby brother's just kind of in the background a little bit. He's always standing right there, but it's the brother who's on the microphone or who's holding court. And I don't know, it seems like this was a situation that Big Brother had a lot of influence on baby brother.
Yes, leading him down the wrong path, but little brother's only 1 year younger, so doesn't really have a lot to hang his hat on in terms of, hey, I was just doing what my big brother told me to do. But yes, he was actually, Andrew Tate had already been known and was widely known as this kickboxing champion. He gets on Big Brother UK and is removed pretty quickly, kind of like what we've seen in Love Island here, because yes, a video emerged of him hitting a woman with a belt.
Did you see this video?
I didn't look at it because I didn't want to watch it, but there was also another one where he was making a woman count how many bruises he gave her.
Yes, and to your, like you said, so this sounds familiar because we just went through it several times with Love Island. Folks in the United States are certainly familiar with this, but yes.
This is way
He
worse.
was yank. And you know what, the other one, what's her name? Frankie Taylor
Paul, with that video.
Kind of
Yes,
a thing
yes.
that came out. This was, now, Rose, now I'll be embarrassed. I watched the video this morning.
And see, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I didn't want to click on it.
So I'm sorry, I did.
Well, thank you. Please tell us what you saw or your thoughts on it.
It's weird. But he claims it was consensual. And this is a woman, and yes, her bare butt. He's on top of her in his dingy room on a bed and has a belt and is spanking her, Robes. And look, they claimed it was consensual, but he was plucked off the show, pulled him off the show at the time. But Robes, that made him I shouldn't say a star, but it made him famous.
It elevated him.
Yes, it did.
Which is so disturbing. So a video one like that where you think would destroy someone or cancel someone. No, it gave him a platform to showcase that very same thing. And the scary thing is that millions of young, disenfranchised young men said, hell yeah, I want some more of that.
So, I mean, how much of that is just they're looking at it because it's extreme. You got to be extreme online these days, or I think it's more than that. And I think folks would agree it's more than that. He's found an audience. His messaging is working, and young men are liking what they're hearing, and they want some of it or more of it. Rose, how many are they implementing it, or is this just entertainment? Do young men know different, know better?
At a certain point, when do you know better? I mean, you joked about in a very different way that you didn't become emotionally intelligent until your mid-30s, right?
Late
30s, okay. Well, these guys are 39 and 38, but they're influencing young men. We're talking teenagers, men in their 20s, men who are searching and looking. And look, when we see the volatility and the violence in the world, let's be honest, when we think about school shooters, when we think about terror attacks, we're talking about young men in their 20s. So this is a highly susceptible group of folks who are looking for leadership, looking for direction. And instead of getting it from maybe someone like their pastor or someone who they can look up to, who can lead them down the right path, these guys are exacting scary and massive and dangerous influence. And the fact that they're still, I know right now they're behind bars, but my God, what took so long if what they're being accused of is true? It is disgusting that they not only did, if they did it, what they're accused of doing, but broadcast it to the world and wanted to teach other men to behave like they do.
Yes, that is, and
how is that possible?
They are entrepreneurs. And Rogue, it's why I always say, man, there's so many people I see out there, criminals. Like, wow, that is really impressive. If you were able to use your powers for good, my good, they built an empire, they built influence, Robes, and they have a voice in a worldwide conversation, and they built that from nothing. And what they built it on? Porn. They actually built, what was the article's name? They built an empire on abuse. They built an empire on abusing women. That is true, Rob. They made their initial fortune. This started, in the early 2010s. They said they started a porn business, and then when they were taking these young women, I say taking, but these women were on live webcam, and they were being paid money. These guys built a fortune. Now, Robes, you hear that. Okay, fine. You're not into porn. Knock yourself out. But you understand.
If it's adults, it's all consensual.
But this now goes along, Robes, and makes sense with so many of the charges they're facing having to do with sex trafficking. With sex trafficking now, they have faced sex trafficking charges from Romania to Britain. Now they're, again, arrested in the U.S. to be sent back to Great Britain. But Robes, so many of the allegations fall in line to make it seem like they have coerced and been influencing young women into sex acts and porn without necessarily the women's understanding. Coerced is the word they keep using.
Coerced. And one as young as 15, I believe, in one of the charges.
He's alleged to have had sex with that 15-year-old.
Yes, and look, we're talking the recent round of charges. I believe the total count, as of this recording, that these two brothers are facing together, 59 charges.
In Great Britain alone.
In Great Britain alone. In Romania, they haven't gotten their act together enough to actually formally charge them, but they were under suspicion. They were under house arrest.
Oh, they charged them. They were thrown out because there was paperwork problem. They invalidated. Then they're going to go back and redo it. And then they were supposed to be stuck there. And that's where we'll get into some White House or administration connection. They weren't even supposed to leave Romania. And somebody swooped in and saved them. We'll explain that in just a second. Go ahead, Mom.
But I would say we have to claim them because they actually have dual citizenship. They were born here in America. They were raised mostly in England, correct, outside of London. But they're American too. And so they were free to come here once Romania lifted that 2-year house arrest. I don't know if it wasn't a sentence, but it was some sort of a mandate.
It was a country arrest. They weren't supposed to travel.
Okay. But they made their way to Miami. And that is where they have been arrested recently. But my God, what happens next is certainly going to be interesting because there are a lot of different possibilities.
They have always maintained, we'll say it again, maintained they are innocent of all charges they have faced around the world. At this point, denied them all. But the latest here, and this is a long list. So what happened in the latest round here, Robes, and they're back in the U.S. and the British want them back. But they have charged them now with a whole new slew. And you always said that the big brother is the one that's kind of out front. He is facing some severe charges, Robes, and they stack up much more severely and just in number, so much more than his brother.
Yeah, it's hard to get your head around these charges, but we'll go over the latest ones right now. But and these incidents, as you mentioned, did start back in 2010, correct? But
2010 to 2017 is this latest round. Yes.
Okay, Andrew Tate is now being charged with 7 counts of rape, 3 counts of sex trafficking, 3 counts of assault, 19 more charges relating to sexual images of children and extreme pornography. So we're talking about child porn.
Now, I told you I watched that video earlier. I was not brave enough to Google what they meant because they put it in parentheses, extreme pornography.
Yeah, what is that?
I did not Google that one.
I don't want to Google it either, but we can imagine, and I'm sure none of us actually want to have any of that in our head. Now, his brother Tristan Tate, who again is a year younger, faces 2 new charges of rape, 1 count of sexual assault, and 3 counts of sex trafficking. But these are charges all in Great Britain.
Oh, and before, these are the latest ones. Okay, before that, the ones that went back to 2012 to 2015. Rape, bodily harm, human trafficking, and controlling prostitution. That is where they now, with the combined Robe, they have 59 charges between those 2 cases. This looks awful. They are innocent. We always say, Robe, they'll stop. They are innocent men until otherwise proven. But this stuff has been stacking up. It goes back to 2010. This is 15 plus years that they have counts of rape numbering in the double digits.
I mean, that does rival Jeffrey Epstein. That does rival some of the worst sexual predators in this world ever documented in history. And they profited off of it. They have a following because of it. That's what distinguishes this case, and that's what makes this, to me, so much more frightening than anything we've seen before because of the influence they've had. And they are now, let me know if you think any differently. Are they being martyred here now that they're going to now be potentially facing all of these charges, going to be thrown in court, possibly thrown behind bars for the rest of their lives? Will they be martyred? Will it almost enliven their followers that they've amassed over these decades?
Martyred, Robes. So you made me immediately think to a, what was it? Was it Donald Trump Jr. or Eric Trump?
Donald Trump Jr.
With the comment when they were in Romania. That tells you maybe all you need to know. Now, we haven't heard anything new from the administration after this latest round of charges. But Robes, there were times when they were being charged in Romania, which one was it again? Which brother?
So Andrew Tate and Romania, by the way, we should mention what those charges were because they were specific as well, correct? They had charges of coercion, coercing women in sex acts, porn, accused of rape, and having sex with a minor. That was Andrew with the 15-year-old. That was all from Romania.
And while he was being held in Romania, not allowed to leave, he got words of support?
Correct.
That's no other way to interpret what that was. He said, God, I can't remember which son it was.
It was Donald Trump Jr.
Donald Trump Jr. spoke up in pretty definitive terms about what he thought about this guy being accused of rape, sex with a minor, and coercing women into sex acts and pornography. His feeling was it's insanity, was the word he used.
The fact that they were arrested and being charged was, quote unquote, by Donald Trump Jr., insanity. And that's
what he thought about it.
Tells you what you need to know. And there is concern now. We've already seen folks wondering whether or not our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, will actually extradite these brothers. But look, there's a lot of questions about what sort of support they may or may not have from the Trump administration. It's been widely, all the headlines suggest that the Tate brothers are huge supporters of Donald Trump and the Trump administration and have been supporters of his campaign. And you pointed this out earlier. If you look at who their followers are and who a lot of folks are within the MAGA community, the far right who are just vehemently in support of President Trump and his policies, there is overlap between those two slices of society is the best way for me to put it, right? I mean, I'm trying to be as politically correct as I possibly can.
No.
Don't want to offend anybody because just because you're MAGA and just because you support Trump doesn't mean that you are a part of the manosphere or you in any way condone what these brothers have been putting out there.
That is true.
And I want to make sure we point that out.
And also, just because you're a member of this manosphere thing doesn't mean you're a member of MAGA. So we don't want to offend either group.
Wow, I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective, but okay. Now that you point that out, fair.
We don't want to offend anybody. But yes, Rose, to your point, they became a big deal because when you have, like you said, Rose, they have that much influence over that particular group. Tucker Carlson flew to Romania to interview this guy. Candace Owens flew to Romania to interview this guy. They wanted to, when they were in the midst of all these charges with all this going on, Robes, and that Tucker Carlson interview, I think it got 100 million views.
It probably did.
I think it did.
And that's why he went over there to interview them. And that's why Candace Owens went over there to interview them.
But Robes, that's the thing. That is why they're influential, because you've got folks clamoring to be a part of that community. They want access to who these guys have. So that, yes, does make folks like Donald Trump Jr. look at this maybe differently. There are plenty of reports. The New York Times has done some reporting about a relationship that Andrew Tate has with Barron Trump, of all people, who was a fan of Andrew Tate's, and they have actually been on FaceTimes together. Robes? So how big and significant that relationship is, we don't know. However, we have gotten some significant and big-time reporting from the New York Times about that relationship and the fact that maybe the Tate brothers would not even be out of Romania had it not been for President Donald Trump.
We continue our conversation about Andrew and Tristan Tate, two names that I frankly did not know up until recent headlines, and man, I wish I had known about them sooner. This is the kind of story, these are the type of influencers that are dangerous, that we all, especially us women and especially folks raising young women, need to know and understand and be aware of. That's where I am actually angry at myself as a parent to not even recognize, yes, we know this stuff is out there, but I didn't know to what extent. I didn't know the power these brothers had, the influence these brothers had, and the fact that they've been allowed to continue to operate for decades upon decades. And yes, they haven't been convicted of their crimes, but we can convict them on their words. And we can convict them on what we've heard directly from them, what we've seen from them, what they've bragged about, and what they've tried to convince other men to go out and do and become and behave. That's a problem that we can condemn because we've seen it. This isn't, we don't need a courtroom, we don't need set of jurors to determine that these folks are guilty of spreading hate and of inciting dangerous acts against women.
Okay, well, how are we, how is anybody gonna convince his 10.8 million followers on X that what you are saying is right and not what he's saying? I say that somewhat sarcastically, but I that's the challenge, Robes. If you have, he's got an army. To think that anybody is like would be a follower of these things, women belong to men.
And that is absolutely what he says.
So I'm saying, how can I go to, if any one of those 10.8 million believe that? I don't even know where to start. I don't know how to start.
It's overwhelming. Look, and it's so interesting when I say, because I keep seeing like social media influencers. Don't you think of just like fun girls taking selfies and showing you the best beauty products out there? I don't think of someone encouraging and listing how to control women, basically. Control women to do whatever it is that you want them to do because it's your right as a man. I don't know how to counter that. Because if you give someone power who feels powerless, that's intoxicating as hell. And you're telling them it's their right, it's their natural born right, and that what the rest of the world, all these, what do they call it, gyno something, all these feminazis out there, all these women want to tell you otherwise. We're here to re-empower you, to put you in your rightful place, to put you on the throne you deserve. That is hard to combat when someone's giving you that and telling you you deserve it and you were born into that right.
So where do you want to start? Like where do we even start?
Well, add the Trumps to the situation and it's mind-blowing.
Conversation. I just, where do you start? Because yes, the administration even, I guess we should go in particular with the Defense Department. Bro, they promote this uber masculine, broy, we will blow shit up attitude. I'm not making that up, and that's not a criticism. That's just a statement of fact of how they've gone about promoting. And yes, this whole idea, estrogen, testosterone testing.
Don't get that mixed up.
Man.
Woo!
They're probably discussing
You must
it.
have low T, just the fact that your brain could tell your mouth to say that.
Right? I need to go in for some testing. What am I, 48 now?
You probably have low T.
But Ro, just that idea that is literally telling men you're not man enough to be in the military. This is what we do now. So these guys have a platform. So if that's coming from the administration, we shouldn't be surprised, Rove, that the administration seems to have an interest in the Tate brothers. Romania. People can't figure it out for the life of them how these dudes left Romania. They were there. They were supposed to be under, like you said, house arrest of some kind, but they weren't supposed to leave the country. They weren't supposed to be able to travel. Lo and behold, they made their way to Florida.
Private jet.
Yes. When did they land this year? They got there when? It was this year, right? Or was it last year?
It was either late last year or early this year,
so
I believe.
Just got back to the U.S. And Robes, there is reporting by the New York Times. They did an extensive article about the connection between the Trump administration and the Tate brothers, and absolutely. They say prosecutors over in Romania are pissed that this was a diplomatic intervention, the likes of which we should not be seeing. And it was scary to think that these two, that the President of the United States, so the administration is the accusation, stepped in and convinced the Romanian officials to lift that ban on the travel. And as soon as they did, they got the hell out of there. They have text messages, Robes, the New York Times reporting, that show Andrew Tate texting someone, don't know who's on the other end, saying, "I'll be out soon. The Trump administration is on top of it." Another one we're saying, "Yeah, I think it'll be fine. It's just Trump needs to see us in Miami." Robes, he's texting this to people who never thinking this is going to get out. Robes, it is scary to watch what is happening right now with these guys. And the scariest part, whatever happened, I mean, they have, according to these indictments, Robes, they have victims upon victims all over the world, it appears at this point.
Absolutely.
So whatever happens to them is one thing, But I do think, Robes, they are giving us something very important and sounding alarm bells. We have got to pay attention to these Tate brothers and what they represent.
Yeah, I mean, you've said this when it comes to racism. It's, you know, the overt racists are one thing and we have to deal with them because they do spawn so much hate. And then it's the covert ones that are even scarier. But when you have overt racism and that's not even corrected, and this is misogyny, but it's also racism, correct? This is all about white male dominance.
Oh, there's some anti-Semitic stuff thrown in there as well.
Because I wanted to point out, yes, it's mostly against women, but
Yeah.
it also is absolutely being deemed as racist, misogynist, you name it. It's basically if you aren't white and you aren't a male, you should have no say because they are the superior beings, period.
And if you're not rich, don't have a great car, don't have a good body, right? They're just promoting this thing. And so for me, bro, I understand what you're saying. When you said embarrassed, I was alarmed. Like, I didn't know this stuff is going on. We see their names in the headline. We've covered their names in headlines a couple times. Robes, I did not know this is a thing. Robes, a big thing. So I'm thinking about a 17-year-old boy, a 15-year-old boy, a middle schooler, a college junior, looking for identity, looking to be strong, looking to be a man. We were talking about this the other day, Rose, about how in the dating shows, men don't know how to react when their feelings get hurt, their hearts get broken because they lash out. That's how we are trained to do. They're being trained in a way I didn't even know was out there.
You know, it's so frightening because I just think about all of these millions of followers who we don't know who they are, but what happens when the next time a girl rejects them? What happens when the next time a woman makes him feel stupid? You know, like you've talked about extensively that men don't have necessarily or aren't given the tools necessarily to emotionally and maturely react to things. This takes things to a whole other level that is frightening beyond belief. And then to think that it has ties to some of the policy, or at least the mindset has ties to some of the policy changes we're seeing in this administration. It's something we all need to be paying attention to as fathers, as mothers, as humans. Women shouldn't just be upset about this. Men and the men who love them should be upset about this. This is disturbing and alarming, and in a way, I'm so grateful that this is coming out now so that I can be more aware of it. Because yes, we've heard manosphere and I've heard toxic masculinity and hypermasculinism and I've heard all of these phrases and we've done podcasts on them. I haven't thought of them as something inherently dangerous to the point where women's lives are at stake. And it does feel like this when you start to read the scope of this, what they've been putting out there, as long as they've been putting out there, and the support they've been getting along the way. This is beyond frightening.
Is there any parent that would want their young child, let's go a young man, young boy, to follow a guy who calls himself the king of toxic masculinity? Is there any way you would say to your son, yeah, that's cool. This is what the guy calls himself. He calls himself a misogynist. There is no way. I don't need to look into that person's background before I know that's not somebody you want your young man growing up to be like. So, Rose, this is a warning that needs to be passed along, yes, to young women. But first and foremost, to young men.
You are correct.
Watch out for this. This is not manliness. This is not masculinity. This is not manhood. This is bullshit that gets promoted and pushed. Maybe Robes, he just started out because he wanted to build a following. Who knows if he's just playing a character, Robes, or if this is who he is. But some of these allegations, Robes, somebody's been saying the same thing about him for 20 years. It's hard to believe that that's just a coincidence. Robes, there is a consistency in what people have been saying about these two for damn near 20 years.
Yeah, and when someone shows you who they are and tells you who they are, this isn't even about somebody trying to say he's not what it seems or it appears. No, he's doubling down and saying that's exactly who I am. And I like what you just said. Yes, I guess I was internalizing it, thinking mothers need to be aware, women need to be aware, but my God, fathers need to be aware. And we all need to be talking to our young men and making sure they're not being unduly influenced by people who are putting out this kind of hate.
All right, well, folks, we'll continue to educate ourselves.
Yes.
But yes, we have to admit, this is not just the details and just how widespread this stuff is. It's not something we were up on as much as we are now, but we always appreciate you spending a little time with us. Talk soon.